Okay, thank you everybody for being here today. We are conducting the Climate Advocate Training Workshop for Citizens Climate International for our friends in Malawi. So welcome everyone. My name is Kathy Orlando and I work as the Program Director at Citizens Climate International. I live in a mining town in Northern Ontario and I was raised in Niagara Falls. I don't know if you've heard of it. And I have 3 daughters, born in 1996, 1997, and 2007. And I'm also a Climate Reality alumna. I hope by the end of today that you will understand and highlight the benefits of carbon pricing. You will be able to demonstrate Citizen Climate Lobby's core values and articulate our 5 levers of building political will, and that you discover how to get involved in your local chapter's advocacy and prepare for lobbying, which is at the core of what we do. Our agenda today is introductions, overview of CCL, or Citizens Climate Lobby, which is our mothership, and we're Citizens Climate International, carbon pricing, our values, our 5 levers of political will, planning for your lobby meeting, and questions and practice time. Our solution to climate change is democracy, and we need you on our team. So thank you for being here today. So one of the things we like to do at Citizens Climate Lobby to get to know each other is to share what we are most committed to and why. And we will share amongst our group. And while that's happening, I would actually like to pause the video so that this video is not too long. So I'm just going to pause it. So the founder and president of Citizens Climate Lobby is the late Marshall Saunders, who passed away in December of 2019. And he realized that ordinary people like you and me would have to organize and educate ourselves and give up our hopelessness to gain the skills to be effective with our government. I'd like to take this moment to thank you for being part of Marshall's dream. And one thing we take very seriously at Citizens Climate Lobby is self-care. And one of the quotes that we like to remind ourselves of is one of Marshall's favorite authors, which was E.B. White. And E.B. White said, if the world were merely seductive, that would be easy. If it were merely challenging, that would be no problem. But I rise in the morning torn between a desire to improve or save the world and a desire to enjoy or savor it. This makes it hard to plan the day. So we encourage you to savor the world as much as you can, because that leaves you more charged for saving it. Citizens Climate Lobby has almost 600 groups globally and almost 200,000 supporters, including many chapters on the continent. So thank you, Malawi, for joining the team. We focus on carbon pricing. And one of the ways we do that is by encouraging our leaders to ask their governments to join the Carbon Pricing Leadership Coalition. This is a World Bank initiative that helps countries develop carbon pricing policies that are suitable for their countries. And one of the things that our volunteers have done is to bring letters to their government asking them to join the Carbon Pricing Leadership Coalition, and some have already done so. If you didn't already know this, 45 national jurisdictions, or approximately 21.5% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions, are covered by a carbon price. And why is that? Well, we're in an emergency and we need the most effective policies possible. I mean, this is really serious. This summer, going forward, may be the coolest summer on record, and it was hot. We have got to work with facts. So one of our volunteers in Mexico, Jorge Martinez, did some wonderful work for me, looking at the impacts of various policies on reducing or changing the profile of the global primary sources of energy, air pollution, and global temperatures. He did this by using a simulation tool called On-Roads, which is developed by Climate Interactive and the Massachusetts or Institute of Technology, or MIT. And here's what he found. When you go to On-Roads and you just look at the baseline scenario of what is happening with the planet between now and 2100, this is the profile of the global sources of primary energy. This is how much, if the status quo was kept, we would expect in air pollutants. And for the record, air pollution affects the poorest among us because they tend to live in areas where air pollution is really bad. And this is the global temperature for which we can expect by 2100 if no new policies were created. So what Jorge did was he went in and he changed the profiles of the policies that are currently enacted on the planet and looked at various scenarios. So the first thing he did was he removed all fossil fuel subsidies. And this is what he found. The profile for the global sources of primary energy barely changed. There was a very, very slight change in pollutants, and the planetary temperature did not change. So removing fossil fuel subsidies is important because that money would be better spent by governments elsewhere. But when you're looking at its impact of removing every fossil fuel subsidy from governments around the planet, it barely makes an impact. So that's one policy. What if we were to maximize clean energy subsidies? Well, let's look what happens. So Jorge, he maximized subsidies to renewable energies, also maximized subsidies to clean transportation and electrification of the systems. So this includes public transit. And even maximizing all those subsidies across the planet, we saw a slight increase in the total clean energy, and some change in the profile of the oil and gas, but not as much as one would want, and only a 3.2 degree, only a 0.4 degree change in temperature. And that is because clean energy, subsidizing it, does not make polluters pay. And in fact, subsidizing clean energy, as you will see shortly, if it's not done properly, will actually benefit the habits of the rich among us. So, if you're going to subsidize clean energy, there should be very directed programs to make sure that it benefits the poor and the middle class, because they are going to be most impacted by what is coming. So then Jorge looked at maximizing tree growth across the planet. And what he found is it had no impact on the primary sources of energy, coal, oil, gas, renewables, no change in the air pollution, and only a slight decrease in temperatures. Now, that's not to say that maximizing tree growth is not important. It's just to say, if you're looking at reducing global temperatures and changing the global sources of primary energy, this is not the policy tool that you would use. However, maximizing tree growth has really good prospects for climate adaptation and increasing biodiversity, as well as economic growth. So it's a policy that's needed. Finally, if we maximize carbon pricing just by taking this one toggle and maximizing it, like it's actually below here, we see a whole degree change in temperature. And that is why we support carbon pricing, because it is the most powerful policy tool we have to reduce global temperatures. So there are three ways to price pollution. You could do cap and trade. That means to put a cap on emissions, allow companies to trade. Now, this requires a lot of government infrastructure and very little corruption. If you live in a country where there is corruption and don't have the infrastructure to support it in terms of the government, it's not a solution. It's just not on the table. There's carbon taxes where the government takes the money and then uses it for programs. Again, if you're in a country where where there's corruption and you're not quite sure what the government does with money, then perhaps this is not a solution. What we support at Citizens Climate Lobby is for the government to take that money and redistribute it back directly to the people. And this could be measurable. And give it directly, regardless of income, regardless of carbon footprint. And I'll show you what will happen. So I'm going to explain it a little bit more, though. So what we propose is that countries around the world need to start incrementally rising the price of pollution, give all the money back to the people so they can afford the changes that are happening to food prices and fuel prices as the carbon price goes up, and also include border carbon adjustments to help encourage other countries to price carbon pollution. This incrementally rising price on carbon pollution will signal to investors and innovators when on a timeline, oil, gas, and coal are much more expensive than renewable energy, and they will invest appropriately. By giving the money back to the people, this does two things. It creates political will because people are getting money. But as you will see, it will also reduce income inequality and increase financial stability of homes because they will have a source of income as we are transitioning. And by including border carbon adjustments, which we don't expect right away from many countries in the global south, but certainly most of all the countries in the global north should have them soon. This will start making carbon pricing a global initiative. So what does this policy do? Climate income puts money in the pockets of everyone, and they can spend with no restrictions. And studies show if you give that money to households, which is mostly led by women, they will spend that money on education, healthcare, and good food for their children. And I will show you that most low and middle income people will come out financially ahead. And if you're upper middle income, you will break even. It will save lives. Fossil fuel air pollution was responsible for more than 8 million deaths in 2018. That's almost 1/5 of all global deaths. And as I showed you previously, pricing carbon pollution with climate income is the single most powerful tool we have to get to net zero by 2050. My country, Canada, that's my prime minister, announced that climate income would be our national carbon pricing policy. So I'm going to briefly show you the data from my country. It does reduce emissions. I actually didn't cut and paste that data. It's actually the single most important policy for reducing emissions. But what's really interesting to note is that the bottom 2/3 of Canadians actually come out ahead. And only the top income earners pay. And even when you look at the carbon pricing policy next year, which will be $50 a ton, it's literally less than 200 Canadian dollars a year, which is the equivalent of a couple, let's say 20 or so fancy cup, no, not even 10 fancy cups of coffee or 20 fancy cups of coffee a year, not a week, a year. Okay. So Canadians often go and buy coffee. And so that's like something we do. And this is literally, and I think they can afford that. So it's not a lot of money they have to pay in the first place compared to how much money they get back. So why do the richest among us actually have that little bit to pay? And that's because they are the highest consumers of greenhouse gases on the planet. The richest 10% literally have consumed almost 50% of all the greenhouse gases in the last between 1990 and 2015. If you dig down into the data, you can see that the top income quintiles, which is the green bar, in every G20 country that this data was available for, consumes much more greenhouse gases compared to average. And the bottom 50 and 40% consume less. And that's why most middle income and low income households come out ahead. Another way to look at it is through this graph. Look at how much fossil fuels and greenhouse gas emissions the richest 5% among us consume. So you're like, okay, so you're giving me data for Canada, but what about Malawi? And the data is the same for the USA, Australia, et cetera. Now, we don't have direct data for Malawi, but what we can show you is that the income distribution profiles of the United States, Canada, and Malawi are very similar. So one would expect that most of your lower and middle income households would come out ahead and get money, more so than what they paid in fossil fuel taxes. So that's just one piece of proof. Obviously, more is needed, but I think your government would appreciate this data. So before I continue, I'm wondering if there are any questions about carbon pricing, or are there any comments David, Michael would like to make first before I continue, because I just gave you a Canadian perspective, but maybe he wants to add something before we continue. And thanks for being here today, David, Michael.
Thank you, Patty. I have nothing much to add other than to say that we need to change the narrative of the demand for climate justice and just sitting down to wait for Global North to send grants to support us, our adaptation initiatives. This cannot solve the problem. What can solve the problem for us is for we to help our people build resilience. And the best way to building resilience is empowerment through income, such as the climate income. So, in as much as we know that this is a problem not necessarily caused by us, we are very delighted as Africans to be part of the solution because we are most affected. So we need to change the narrative of just sitting down and just waiting for grants, which are no longer available. There is donor fatigue at the moment. There are other global issues that are competing with such grants. So, and the other ways is simply through sustainable investment in clean technology, investment in clean energy initiatives and all. So, but overall, we need the poorest person on the continent to have access to resources. And the only way we can achieve that is through climate income. Thank you, Kathy.
Beautiful perspective, and I really appreciated that. So, any questions, comments, clarification, please? You can write in the chat if you wish, and I can answer your questions. Yes, please go ahead, Ishmael.
Right, Kato. Can you hear me?
Yep, the closer you are to the microphone, the better I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, fine. We see that there is already a political will on this policy. But here in Malawi, there is a tendency that when you are an activist or upon a certain issue, you need to show like papers. Should we expect any certification from CCL to give us that we can easily advocate to the policymakers on this issue? That is my first question. Thank you.
Oh, yep, we will give you a certificate that you've completed the training. So if you can present that, you're also will show up as an activated group on our maps in a couple weeks. And David, Michael, and myself, and your colleagues, other colleagues are here to help you, get those. If you ever need help with answering questions with your governments, and we help you point your government in the right direction. And what you'll find is that your government will really appreciate the advice, and they need you. That's what we've learned over the last 11 years here in Canada. Any other questions?
Okay, right. Well clarified. Because here in Malawi, we have those sort of issues that when you are advocating something that has to do with policy, they are fond of asking about authentication of what you are doing. Like this carbon issue here in Malawi, you can say that it's a new thing. Many people don't know that there is this other carbon issue. That's why as we want to get involved, we want to jump into this issue. Now, before we come to contact with the policymakers and those so-called lions, we need to have like documentations at hand that we are doing this because there is ABCD. And our authentication is coming from this focal point, like CCL, the international platform. So if we have those sort of documents, then it will be very easy to combat and approach these lions that we can involve our ideas.
Okay, that is more of an administrative question and not a carbon pricing question for which I was asking for. But I'll briefly say, and we can discuss it afterwards, and your African colleagues can help you. Every country has their own, certification process by which they need to do the work. So we will, you just tell us, if you need, our certification, giving you the certification that you've completed our training is pretty much what we will give you. And again, I said it will be on the map. Any sort of legal or financial or any sort of support that way, we don't offer that. We just do not have the resources if that's what you're asking for. Like in Canada, we had to pay all of our own not-for-profit stuff, and it was expensive. So yeah, so I understand, but every country has their rules, and I don't know what they are for Malawi. Sorry, there are 195 countries. It's hard enough to even know my own countries, and you should see the USA. It's crazy what the rules they have for not-for-profits. So, but we can discuss that administrative detail afterwards, and I'd like to stay focused on the training, if that's okay.
Thank you.
So, any questions about carbon pricing? Okay, so I hope what you've learned is that the richest among us have a huge carbon footprint, and the bottom income earners, and like even the bottom 2/3 in most countries, actually have a much lower carbon footprint compared to average because of the heavy carbon footprint, and that is why with our policy, most low and middle income earners come out ahead. And this allows for the carbon price to be ramped up really high, because as we're ramping up the carbon price, the money that the people are getting back from the government goes up and up and up too. So even though there's increases in prices on fuels and stuff like that, most people are getting more money back from the government. So this keeps the political will going. And the goal is for more countries to have climate income, because this will, like Canada and Switzerland has a form of it as well. We're the only two countries. This will allow that carbon price to ramp up. And the more countries that have this policy, the more countries will want it. So we're working on this together as a team. But how do we do this work is what I'd like to focus on next. Just let me get back to my slides. So it's the CCL way. So we have, oh, sorry, I have the wrong flag there. I forgot to change it. My apologies. We have our values. We are focused on one thing, that's carbon pricing and climate income. Because if we start getting ourselves distracted by all the other policies, it gets very exhausting. Integrity. We know that carbon pricing is not the only thing that needs to be done. And we are open to other ideas for reducing emissions. And we do our homework and we do our best, to show our politicians the best information that we have. We believe that humans are good. We are ruthlessly optimistic, actually. We embrace diversity. I love this job. It allows me to work with people all over the world. I am enriched by all of you, and I hope you become enriched by all of your colleagues across the planet. If focus is our superpower, I like to think personal power is the energy that drives us. So individuals speaking truth to power with love in their hearts, with the best information they have possible, and getting out of their comfort zones is what makes us work. At the very core of what we do is being non-partisan. So we do our best to appeal to all political parties, because this is a nonpartisan issue. And apologies for having the wrong flag here. We are nonpartisan. So relationships, core of what we do, personal power, our energy, and focus is our superpower. So it's all about relationships. We appeal to the best in others. We believe that they're good. We respect and appreciate all the politicians that we work with. And we're standing for climate income. We're giving them something to ponder that is full of evidence that will work. And our mission is to build the political will for a livable world. And what does this look like? It's the clear demonstration back home of support from citizens, business leaders, faith groups, and local officials, and needs to be widespread and focused on specific steps. And here, right here, just for the record, is a 11-year-old girl hugging the former leader of the House. She was born in Kuwait. Her parents are of Egyptian descent. And she, and the leader of the House was born in India. And it was just a beautiful moment in Canadian of our work, showing how relationships and respect and political will works. And so our mission is to empower people to have breakthroughs in exercising their personal and political power. And, look at these young boys. I think this is Nigeria, putting together, a solar panel. And you can see how empowered they are and how into it they are. And one of the things that drives us is this essay by Charles Wright called Power and the Law. And at the core of CCL is this excerpt from it. When you reach out to another person through the energy or creativity within you, and that person responds, like these boys right here, you are exercising power. When you make somebody do something against their will, to me, that is not power at all. That is force, and force is a negation of power. So most of us live inside our comfort zone. But when you lobby or write a letter to the editor or get out of your comfort zone, that's where the magic happens. And so we do our magic or get out of our comfort zones by pulling on what we call citizen climate lobbies, levers of political will. And there are 5 of them. And these are the activities that we do to leverage, to bring citizens into the political process and create constructive change. We lobby, and we'll talk about that. And, basically we're building friendly relationships with our politicians. And we hope they'll support our proposal. And we'll teach you how to do that today. We also work with media. We write letters to the editor. We meet with editorial boards. We send them media releases. And we work to put our stories in all forms of media. We do grassroots outreach. You can write to your senators or your representatives. You can do what we call tabling. That means like being at events and handing out information and talking to your fellow citizens. We do presentations, we educate, we persuade, we build goodwill. And some of our volunteers make these giant, beautiful parachutes, and they paint them, and then they bring them to events, and they attract people to us, and it gets the conversation going. We also do grass tops engagement, which means build the support from community leaders and non-governmental organizations for climate income. And we develop our chapters. And this is your colleagues in Uganda. On the day they decided that they were going to ask their government to join the Carbon Pricing Leadership Coalition. So basically you run your teams as such. You'll have a media team for people who like to do media, a lobby team, a grassroots team, a grass tops team, and you develop a group and development team. At CCL, David Michael regularly conducts meetings, and you should be getting your groups together on a regular schedule to discuss, to learn, celebrate, practice, and act together. For 11 years in Canada, on the second Saturday of the month, we all meet, and that's what we do. And we've done it for 11 years straight. And then we also share small little talks about how to talk about carbon pricing. And we have one rule, and that's just respect, admiration, and gratitude. So I am going to run out of time if I'm not careful, but we're going to do this. Okay, so there's a difference between citizen lobbyists and expert lobbyists. We are citizen lobbyists. So how do they differ? And what does that mean for you when you're lobbying? Like, how do you approach it? How do you feel? What do you think the difference is? So would anybody like to answer this question? What's the difference between a citizen expert versus a citizen lobbyist versus an expert lobbyist? And what does this mean when you lobby, or how do they differ? Anyone? Hey, David, Michael, you're pretty experienced with, Ishmael's got it. Go ahead.
Can you hear me, Kato?
Yes, we can.
I'm not getting you very well. Can you come up with the question again?
Okay. Oh, I love that you asked that question. So we're not experts. We're just everyday people. So when you go to talk to your politician as just an everyday person and not an expert, because we're not experts, What's the difference? How does that make you feel? What do you think they're thinking? What sort of tactics would you use? So, any thoughts on that?
Right. Yes, I can have a suggestion there, Kathy.
Yes, please.
Indeed, we are not experts on this field right now. And the politicians are they are political figures, they are administrators. There is a very good chance that they can undermine us. But if we can approach them on faith perspective, we can win. Because if we use faith leaders in order to approach these people, their powers will be uprooted. Now, when they are uprooted through faith, even if we are not experts, we can indeed install this type of idea or ideology into them. That's my suggestion.
Yes, of course you can install these ideas into. That's your right as a citizen. So this is really good. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to share? Or David, Michael, you've done a lot of lobbying. Any thoughts as you read this question? Or Rogers as well?
Yeah, thank you very much, Kathy. Let me attempt this question. The difference between citizen experts and citizen lobbyists. For me, what I see could be the difference here, first and foremost, is to say that citizen climate lobbyists are there just to lobby for the good well-being of the citizens and the world. But citizen climate lobbyists would be, citizen climate experts would be those technocrats who have gone into degrees, masters, PhDs, studying about climate. But for us, it's just to look at the well-being of our country and our world together. So we're just trying to wish if the country or the world could be a better lived in this way. And so we work together to lobby for the good of us as fellow human beings and the whole world. I think that's how I can attempt it. Thank you, Kathy.
Yes, lobbying for the good. And good in English comes from the word God. So it does. So it's a derivative of that. So yeah, it's for the greater good that we do this work. And it's for no other benefit than all of us. And that's hugely powerful. So thank you for bringing that up. Anyone else?
Yeah, Kathy, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so to answer this question, for us as ordinary citizens, it gives us a lot of joy when we have the opportunity to lobby or contact with our policymakers for the sake of the climate. What makes us different is that the other lobbyists, when you hear the word lobby, the first thing that comes to your mind is you are with some bags full of dollars and you're walking into a government office to pay some bribe to get certain policies, certain actions of government passed your way. But in our own case, it's just ordinary citizens without a degree, without any form of training, just walking into a government office with a smile, with gratitude, with respect for who the policymaker is, and simply build relationship and demand for action. I was expecting Rogers to give us, a perspective of what the young man who went with him to see the minister for nature early this year. His reaction after he left that scene. I think that provides like a very perfect answer to this question. Rogers.
Yes, thank you very much, David Michael, there for opening the floor for me. Yeah, for sure. So with your explanation on the difference between the citizen climate lobbyists and then the citizen climate experts, I think it's been well put before Kathy also comments on that one. But also just to put it in the perspective that we did as in Malawi under CCI, Citizens Citizen Climate Lobby, is that from the initiative that as CCI were doing is to lobby with the policymakers to see the good welfare for us, the citizens. What we did is we went to meet with the whole Honorable Minister of Forestry and Natural Resources. We went there not because we have the powers or we can give them money to sort out the climate issues, no, but simply because we just wanted them policymakers or the decision makers to see the need and take an action for the betterment of our country. So we went there, it was a team of 6. We went there with one of the person there. He was a student at one of the university. He never even thought in life at his age he would even meet shoulders with the Honorable Minister. It was really so outstanding talking to the Honorable Minister right there sitting in front of us. So it's I think it is a very good example, like the way you put it, David, that we are simply, of course, not undermining ourselves, but all we do is to just lobby for the policymakers, not because of the money to give them to do that, not because of we have doctors, PhDs, or masters into citizens climate, no, but because we just want the good for our citizens, our country, and also the whole world together. So I think, yes, very, very true. That's really nice. That's pretty nice. Thank you so much, David.
And there's the picture. It was one of the most delightful stories I've ever had the pleasure of reporting on for Citizens Climate International. And Minister Tembo seemed certainly appreciative of what you brought to her and wants to work with you. And congratulations on your effort and your bringing the CCL methodology to your government. That was a beautiful moment. Thank you. And I've put the link to that event in the chat. Okay, I'm going to start again from present. Okay, so I think we got it. I think we understand. So when we lobby, Ishmael, because you're a social worker, you probably already know this, how to do this. We know we can't change people by telling them what to do. What we have to do is get people to figure out why they can't do it, or what are the obstacles that are stopping them from doing what they need to do. And we employ motivational interviewing at Citizens Climate Lobby. So basically what motivational interviewing is, you get a permission to start a topic, and then you ask questions of, how do you think your colleagues will react to this policy? Who do you think you could work with? What division of government should we be really focusing on? When do you think you could get this job done? And where do you think we should go next? Like and how can we help you? And questions like that. Avoid why, because you'll get sometimes philosophical answers. And the whole idea is to get your government talking. So as you develop your lobbying tactics, try not to give them so much information that they don't have time to talk. Really, what you want to get from your government official is how you can help them. At the end of the day, we're there to help them. And we will be able to help them if we ask the right questions. So when we go into a lobby meeting, we have an appreciator, a time monitor, a note taker. It's people who are leading the discussion, somebody who asks specifically about carbon fee and dividend. somebody who delivers any sort of information that the politician may need, such as letters from constituents or something that they've requested, somebody to do follow-up to make sure the politician gets any questions answered or any information. Always take a picture. And if you can, have somebody be an observer in the room. These are suggestions. It's important to be flexible. And we all must be ready to assume multiple roles. It's really important everybody participates in the discussion, except for those who absolutely do not want to talk. Some people are just too anxious to talk. Allow them to, be observers. And most importantly, the constituent should speak, especially somebody from who actually lives in the constituency of the politician. So what we're going to do now is start thinking about what a meeting looks like. There's a beginning, and you're going to practice this. We're going to pick a politician. You're going to have somebody thank the politician, ask how much time do we have? Just briefly introduce Citizens Climate Lobby Malawi. Just say, well, we're Citizens Climate Lobby Malawi, where there's 2 chapters here in our country, and there's over almost 600 chapters worldwide, including many on the continent of Africa. And we've been around the organization's been around since 2008. We really appreciate you being here today, et cetera. It's just something really brief. So somebody who does the intros, somebody who appreciates the politician, and then somebody who will say, we're here today to ask you to consider carbon fee and dividend as a carbon pricing policy for our country. Put an incrementally rising price on carbon pollution, give the money back to the people, and eventually over time, consider how to, if we can do border carbon adjustments. But most importantly, put that price on pollution and give the money back to people. And then think of a couple questions you might ask of the politician. And then you, end the conversation. We don't normally get to the end, but if you could actually assign somebody to say thank you, assign somebody to say how much time do we have, assign somebody to we won't have time to introduce all of yourselves because we've got a pretty big group here today, but just introduce Citizens Climate Lobby and say something nice to the politician, and assign somebody to talk about carbon fee and dividend. And also think of 2 or 3 questions you might ask the politician. That would be great. So I didn't write anything down. I hope these instructions are clear. I'm going to give you literally only 5 minutes to organize yourselves. So I will be the politician, or maybe David Michael will be the politician. And then you just got to assign somebody to do the thank you, ask how much time, do the introduction and appreciation, and then state, carbon fee and dividend, and then think of a couple questions you would ask of the politician. So you have 5 minutes to do that. Somebody has to take the lead. And okay, I'm going to be back in 5 minutes. I have to just check on a couple things, and I'll give you the space. And is that okay if you nudge them along, David Michael? Make sure everybody has a role. Are you there, Mike? Comes and goes.
Yeah, he's not online right now.
Okay. Well, are the instructions clear? Do you have any last questions of me? Because this is the end of the workshop, and I just want to see how you'll do just practicing, and you don't have to be perfect. So I'll be the politician. And please assign people to do these roles. Somebody to say, thank you for meeting with us today. How much time do we have? Somebody who introduces Citizens Climate Lobby, and then somebody who introduces carbon fee and dividend, and think of a couple questions, and we'll and just practice. I'll be back in 5 minutes. Can you do that?
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. We can do that. Yes, thanks.
I'm going to pause recording while you're sorting things out. I want to thank you all for being here today. It's been amazing working with you. I've learned a lot, and I look forward to helping. And it's so exciting. There will be now 2 active chapters in Malawi, and welcome to our team. Is it okay if people turn on their videos just so we can see everyone? That would be lovely. And I'm going to stop sharing. Can anyone else turn on their videos? If not, that's okay.
Video.
What a beautiful crew. Anyone else? This will be the last image people see when they see the end of this video. This is beautiful. This is amazing. So inspiring. I apologize, but I have to get on to my next call. I'm Canadian, sorry, and apologize a lot. So that's why I said it that way. Thank you so much, everyone. I wish you a great day. We'll talk soon.
Thank you very much, Kathy. I wish you all the best. Thanks for taking us through this this training. I really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for connecting, for joining the call. We'll touch base, I think, after this call later on. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Cheers, thanks. Bye.